Okay, today we are using a guest to highlight the Winston and Walter molds that we've been working with. If you are not familiar, Winston and Walter is a company from Canada, and they make fantastic molds and liners, and some of the things that you know about the molds already is their liners are thicker than most of the ones that are sold. She has both sides of the molds come out. It comes with a lid that is not on here right now, and each of the sides have notches on them at 1 inch, so that if you're placing embeds or anything like that, it makes it easier for you to place them and have them spaced properly on the soap. Now, we have made some recipe cards that will come with the molds if you buy them, and that's what we're going to do today. So if you have a recipe card, follow along and we will make some soap. Okay, so some of the things you need is you need your mold, and for this recipe we are using olive oil, castor oil, and coconut oil. You will need a scale that measures in ounces or grams. You're going to need some protective equipment. You'll need something to cover your eyes, some goggles. You'll need some gloves. We might use the thermometer, you might not need it, so that's a maybe. You're going to need some sodium hydroxide. This is from Brambleberry. You can get a small batch like this from Brambleberry. You can even use sodium hydroxide that you can get at the hardware store. Just make sure that it's 100% sodium hydroxide, not mixed with anything else. We're going to use some water. You need something to mix it with, and you'll need some containers to put everything in. Some of the things that we're going to do today that are optional is fragrance and colorant. All right, I'm going to clear all this out and get ready to make some soap. All right, so when we're looking at the recipe that comes with the card, it says that the water needed for this recipe is 9.12 ounces. So Andrea's going to take an empty container and she's going to put it on the scale and then tear it out to 0. So do that now, just hit the ounce button. And when it says 0, we're good. So we want 9.12 ounces of water. Oh, a little bit much. Okay, so we'll put this to the side, and now we're going to measure the sodium hydroxide. When you're measuring sodium hydroxide, first of all, you're going to tear that out, right? So that you're going to press the ounce thing again, and you always want to be in a ventilated area or wearing a mask. So she's going to measure out 3.34 ounces of the sodium hydroxide. Now, the reason she's not putting the sodium hydroxide directly into the water and weighing it out is if you accidentally pour a little bit too much in, you don't want to have a Lye heavy soap, so she's making sure that it's measured out correctly before she adds it to the water. A little high. Kind of high. What's closer? 3.34? Okay. And so now take the water, and we're going to put the sodium hydroxide slowly into the water, mixing as we're doing it. And you never put water into the sodium hydroxide. You always put the sodium hydroxide into the water, because if you put it the other way around, it can splash and volcano because it gets too hot very slowly. Now this is going to heat up a bit, and we're going to set this aside while we get our oils ready. And because we're using coconut oil we need to melt it down, so she's going to measure that out directly into the container. We're going to melt it before we add it to the base. So same thing, she's going to tear out this container, and she's going to put in, okay, so she's going to put 6 ounces of coconut oil. You tear it out, yes? Mm-hmm. Just right spoon.
too much. Enough. We'll get there. We'll get there. Come on.
Good.
On the dot.
So now we're going to take this coconut oil and put it in the microwave for 30 seconds until it melts down to a liquid. In the meantime, we're going to measure out our castor oil and olive oil. So you're going to tear this out. And we'll do olive oil first, 15.5. And now she'll tear it out again and put the castor oil in. Hold it.
You think we'll get 0 press it again?
Yes.
There we go. And next we're doing castor oil.
Now this is going to pour out slower because it's a thicker oil, but remember this is in there so you can't take out. How much is going in?
2.4.
We'll use the scale. We'll measure out the fragrance oil as well. And this is the coconut oil melted down. She'll pour that in as well and scrape every last drop in. So we'll put this to the side, and in a few minutes we'll check the temperatures on those. Now this part is optional. This is going to be your fragrance, right? You don't have to add fragrance to your soap. A lot of people don't add fragrance to their soap, but since we're a soap company, I want to try out a new fragrance. I'm trying to look for the perfect coconut, and so we're going to add a little bit of coconut and see how it holds up after saponification. And all of these measurements are on the recipe cards that are included with the mold. All right, so put the cap back on and we will put this aside. We're done with the scale. And now, I just wanted to show you the difference in temperatures and see where we are. So here's our Lye Solution that Andrea made. This is our oils.
You can take that mask off now.
Yeah, you can take your mask off now. And just so that you know, the oils are at 86 degrees and my Lye Solution is at 144 degrees. So now we wait. We're just gonna wait until they get closer in temperature, within 10 degrees of each other. So this probably won't get any cooler. This will cool down. I might even put this in an ice bath to cool it down faster. And we'll come back when that's ready. Okay, while we are waiting for our Lye Solution to cool down, we're going to get our colorants ready. And again, color is an option. You do not need color to make soap, okay? So this is something that's optional. So Andrea's going to take 2 teaspoons of the colors that she chose and put them into a little cup. You can use a paper cup. You do not need the silicone cups. And then she's gonna take some oil from the oils that we measured out already and add it in here so that it's all mixed together nicely and it will disperse easily into the soap. Another thing that Andrea mentioned was when she was measuring everything out, you saw how she was doing it very slowly and very precisely, and that was because once you mix your oils together, if she was mixing the olive oil and the castor oil in the same container, she didn't want to mess it up because you can't, once it's already mixed, you can't like take some out. A way to get around that would be to measure out all of your oils in separate bowls and then mix them all together at the end. I don't like to do that because it's more dishes, and even though we know that I'm not doing the dishes, I still want to be considerate of John because it's just a lot of dishes. So I do everything in one container. Whatever you do, it's your personal preference, whatever's easier for you to do.
And remind me, you said that some of them couldn't be with plastic, right? I had to use
Yes, you must use soap-safe containers. If you're using a plastic container, I think it's the number 5 that should be on the bottom, or is it the number 5 that should be avoided?
I'm not sure.
I don't even remember.
I think it's a 2.
A 2? I'm not really sure. You can use glass containers, you can use stainless steel containers, you cannot use aluminum, and there are certain kinds of plastics that you cannot use. That's something that you need to look up, or I'll write in the comments. And so basically she's just mixing this up. Put a little bit more oil in here too as well. Just so that this is nice and fluid, so that when we're ready to put it into the batter, it's not all clumpy and it's easier to disperse, and you won't have little clumps of the micas throughout the soap. We want it to go in and be as smooth as possible, because we don't know if this fragrance is going to accelerate. This is like a nice liquidy. Perfect. Okay. And we're back. So I switched the oils into a smaller container to make it a little bit easier to manage. Andrea is going to pour the lye solution into the container. And again, be careful when you're doing this, because it is sodium hydroxide, which is a caustic chemical. So now that's good. So now she's going to use the whisk to stir it up, and her goal is to get it emulsified. Now you can see it's already changing colors, and we want to make sure that it doesn't have an oil slick on top. We want it to be completely mixed in. This part could be done with a stick blender, but again, we don't know how this fragrance is going to behave, so we're going to continue to use the whisk to see how it works.
And you're also talking about not having any specialized equipment.
Yeah, this is, anybody can make soap with a spoon, with a whisk. We don't really need. So now what you could do is you could just see if it's kind of still a little bit oily on top, so.
It takes about 2 minutes or so.
Yeah.
That looks pretty good.
Yeah?
Yeah. To at least split it off.
Yeah. So now just take that, put it down on the side. Perfect. And she's going to split it. This is the part that's not necessary. You could pour it right into the mold at this point and it'll turn into soap. But she wants to add some fancy colors, and we're going to let her do that. So she's going to split half into one container and half into another. I'm going to put my stick blender away for now. Doesn't have to be perfect, because this, this isn't, you're not measuring the lye solution or anything like that. This is just for aesthetics.
And if you know about our drinking game,
Yes.
the dogs barked, so drink up.
Just switch hands. I always have to use I always have to switch. I cannot scrape with my left hand.
Oops.
Right onto the table.
Time is of the essence at this point.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm just gonna wipe it off.
And the fragrance.
Let's put the
color
colorant in. So she's going to put in the colors that she chose were Metallic by Mad Mica and Metallica by Mad Mica and Snake Island.
Once it's in, do I mix it?
Just
Yeah, you can put it in.
Yeah.
Just dump the whole thing. You can scrape a little bit out, make sure it all puts in. We have an electrician working upstairs, so the dogs are going a little bit insane. Good.
Okay.
Just push it off to the side. And then if you're mixing your colorants, once you use the whisk, you want to start with the lighter color and move to the darker color, but these are similarly dark, so it's not really going to make a difference. Good.
Okay.
Okay.
Now you get your whisk and mix. And switch.
Good.
Nice colors. So at this point she's going to, we've already weighed out the fragrance oil, and she's going to put about half in each one. And there's your coconut fragrance, and hopefully this coconut fragrance works out for us. Staying pretty fluid.
Yeah, I think we're gonna
Zip it a little bit. So if we were to pour the batter into the mold at this point, it would all just kind of mix together and become like one big brown color. We don't want that. We want the colors to stay separate when she pours them in the mold. So I want it a little bit thicker. She could sit here and stir for another 10 or 15 minutes.
You go with that. It's gonna be.
It's very thin.
Yeah, well, you're gonna.
Oh yeah, so she's gonna zip it. She's just gonna stick the stick blender in, and one of the things I'm gonna show her first is when you stick your stick blender in, it's got the holes here, and right now I'm putting air in there. So I want to just slam it on the bottom a little bit and burp my stick blender, and just give it quick, short bursts to thicken it up and stir around. And then I'm gonna look for, can you see what's going on here when I drizzle it like that? I'm drizzling it on the top. I want it to be at like a pancake batter consistency. So I'm going to just zip it a little bit, and this is a small container, so it will get thicker really fast. See how it's getting a little bit thicker? Again, and every time I take the stick blender out, I want to burp it, because you don't want air holes throughout your entire batch of soap. Yeah, that's one of your favorites. I'm liking this fragrance because it's working nicely. I can still smell the coconut, which is good. Of olive oil. I did 65% olive oil in this.
So that's why it's there.
So it'll take a while because it's a very. You could, that because you could. And this is why we wear gloves, because it will pop out. That gets on your skin. You want to wash it off as quickly as you can. Anytime it happens to me, I just use plain water and soap. I do not put vinegar on any kind of batter that gets on my arms. Alright, so I'm going to let her do the other container. And the green won't really make much of a difference in that little small amount. And she's burping. This one is too. So one of the things I do is I just take my, I don't know if I can see it. I'm taking the whisk and I'm stirring it around and lifting it up to see how it falls back into the batter. Right now it's not doing anything. So we're going to fast forward through a lot of this, but just so you can see, this is not out of trace. I'll show you what trace looks like when we get there. Be very, like the coconut oil was the only hard oil in this one, so it takes a little bit longer to set up. Yeah. Basically, it's getting a little bit, you can feel when it's getting thicker. What's weird to me is having to explain everything out loud. You know, I mean, even though I do that all day long in school. So now, all right. Here we go.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, let's just.
Right.
Might be the, yeah, might be the, that's it.
Put another one.
Put some water. Rinse it.
Very good. Easy one.
That's okay.
So I take the top off so that it sits and I don't have to worry that it's going to fall over and like splash the batter anywhere. So now one of the other ways that you can let soap get thicker is just to let it sit there. And it's starting to get a little bit thicker and we're not stirring anymore. You can see, I'll hold it up over here. If you look, there we go. And when I lift this out and I don't know if it can be seen, but it's leaving a little bit of a trail on the top, right? Okay, so we waited long enough, I think. It is thick enough so that it's not going to all blend together and make one muddy brown color. And nope, put them back on. Oh. Always eye protective, because if she pours it in and it splashes back out, you can hurt yourself. So hold on one second. I think I'm going to this. Now this is yours, so you pour it in however you think, however you want.
Ready?
Yep.
Oh, it got much thicker.
Yeah.
Go on, I think, so they can see.
You could use the same hand over and over again.
Okay.
I you.
That's right. That's okay. There we go. Looking at the camera. That's fine.
So we're also going to shake it. Wait, no, make sure it's all in there. Sorry. Oops, again. That's the short one. Yeah. So now that you have everything in, you just want to shimmy it, make sure it's even, maybe even slam it down a little bit to make sure that there's no air bubbles in it, right? And now you have to decide, what do you want to do with your top? What I typically do is I just take a wooden skewer and swirl. And then I could do that all day long, but John will usually say, okay, enough. Once you think it looks pretty. So when I saw that it wasn't reaching the top, I got a little bit nervous. what we did was we did the measurements for the smaller mold and put it into the bigger mold. And it doesn't, if I was to put it in here, it would fill it exactly up to the line, but we put it in the larger, this is the 4.5-inch mold instead of the 4-inch mold. And so now I have room that if I wanted to, I can put some embeds on, but what I will do is I'll wipe it down a little bit. And your options at this point is to either just leave it on the countertop, let it sit overnight, or I'm going to, since there's no soap going to touch this, I'm going to put the top on it, and I'm going to, oops, wrong top. And I'm going to turn on my oven to 175 degrees, and then I'm just going to turn it off when it reaches 175. I'll pop this in there, I'll leave it overnight, this way the colors will really gel and set for tomorrow. I will cut this tomorrow. Andrea will not be here for the cutting part. However, she will get to have some of the soap that she made. And that's what we did. So we made soap using the molds from Winston and Walter. If you're looking to purchase this mold, the link will be down below in the description. If you're not following us, consider giving us a follow, like, share us, you know, all that. All of our links to our other social media is down below as well. And remember, life is short. Use the good soap. Here I want you to notice this is the best feature of the Winston and Walter molds, the liners. First I take the side out, and then look at how easy it is to pop this soap out of the mold. Just give a little air on each of the sides and gently press on the bottom, and it just pops right out. Now here you can see there's quite a few holes in the side from leaving little air bubbles inside of it, and the top is a little bit wonky. So I'm just going to take a vegetable peeler and clean up those edges. Still very soft.